Hey everybody, and welcome to Dominion Cards, the video series where we take a strategic, in-depth look at various cards from the board game Dominion. Today we're looking at Secret Passage. This is a 4-cost action card from 2nd edition Intrigue, and it says +2 cards, +1 action, take a card from your hand, and put it anywhere in your deck. So when people tend to look at this card, the first thing that you might compare it to would be your typical filtering or sifting card like Cellar or Warehouse, where you draw up some cards and then you discard them down again. Now, Cellar and Warehouse, they reduce the number of cards in your hand by 1 once you finish playing them, but there exist similar ones like Forum and Fugitive, where you actually hand size neutral. And that is the same with Secret Passage. Your hand size remains the same after you've played with it. So it's not draw, because it's not going up, but it's not like many other filtering cards in that it's not going down either. However, there are some very important differences that Secret Passage has versus cards like Fugitive. So the main, most obvious one is that you're not discarding any cards with Secret Passage. So normally with filtering, you are discarding cards and they go into your discard pile, but Secret Passage is putting it back into your shuffle. And one of the main differences from that, aside from obviously cards that care about being discarded in some way, like Tunnel or Village Green, with Secret Passage, you have to essentially draw those cards again if you want to get to the end of the shuffle. So something you can do with other filtering cards is that you can put a load of cards in the discard, and then you can draw up only to the end of the shuffle, and you don't have to trigger that new shuffle until the end of your turn, and essentially you you don't have to draw up the cards again that you put in the discard. But with Secret Passage, all of the cards that you've been putting back into your deck, you are required to draw them if you want to get to the end of your shuffle. So that means you just need a little bit more draw than you might for other sorts of filtering cards. Assuming, of course, you didn't want to draw the cards that you put in the discard, otherwise it's exactly the same. But if you were putting cards that you don't want to draw in the discard, then Secret Passage just needs a little bit more draw than other similar cards. Now, sometimes, of course, you have a hand full of cards that you want to keep anyway, even though you played Secret Passage. So an example could be if you're doing something like a festival library engine and you've got a handful of festivals and a Secret Passage, and you're playing the Secret Passage to try and find a library. It might be that you've got all of these cards, like the festivals that you actually want to keep around, and you don't really want them to go all the way to the end of the draw, which is what would happen if you put it in the discard. Well, Secret Passage can let you put cards back so that they appear a little bit sooner than usual. Another example might be a handful of Smithy variants, and you're playing Secret Passage because you want to find a village, and then once you've found it, you don't actually necessarily want to put all your draw cards into the discard. So Secret Passage is a little bit better in situations like that. So it's safer in the typical worst case for filtering cards, and in the best case, it just requires you to draw a little bit more, because the best case will have all of these junk cards in the discard that you wouldn't normally draw. So the way I like to look at Secret Passage is that it is retroactively reordering a single card in your deck. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is that when you have drawn a bad card, Secret Passage lets you pretend that actually all along it would have been at some other position in your deck. So when you think about a more traditional deck drawing engine, what you're hoping for is, say, your villages and your smithies to all come up first, and then any stock card payload like basic treasures that you have, you would want to come at the end, or something like any victory cards that you have. So what Secret Passage can do is it can put some silver that you drew early and put it towards the bottom of your deck, and then you can sort of pretend that actually your deck was a lot closer to your ideal method of drawing than it was. Now, I say you pretend, it might help to look at a pictorial example to understand what I mean. So let's imagine you have this top row of cards in your hand. Now, let's imagine you play the Secret Passage and you're going to put the estate at the bottom of your deck. Your hand will end up like the bottom image there, but you'll notice that this is exactly the same as if we just didn't have the secret passage and the estate happened to come at the end instead of its original position. So what you've done is you've essentially taken a card and you've just sort of moved it elsewhere into the shuffle. So because secret passage is drawing 2, you're essentially replacing that estate with the card that you would have drawn instead had the estate actually not been drawn at that time, and instead had just the shuffle had moved it into a more favourable position. So that's sort of secret passage in its default filtering style case. This is sort of what you're doing. You're just sort of moving a card around in your deck. Secret passage, of course, can do more than just that, so you can use it as though it were a typical top-decking card. So you can draw 2 cards with it, and then you can put a card to your next turn, for example. So let's say you had some terminal collision, so you had 2 terminals in your hand, and you can only play one of them. Well, the secret passage can put one of them just on top of the deck, and then you get to play one of those terminals, and the other one you can use for next turn. Or if for some reason you were doing like a secret passage big money sort of thing, if you played secret passage and you ended up with more than 8 money, you might be able to put some treasure back into another hand. So this is very similar to other sorts of drawing and top decking cards like Courtyard. However, what it also allows you to do is it allows you to do that top decking, but you can play a card that's terminal draw now. So if you imagine that you had terminal collision and one of them was, say, a smithy, what you can do in secret passage is you can put the non-smithy action card at position 4 in your deck, and then you can play the smithy, and you will draw 3 cards, and you will not find that other card, and it will be in your starting hand next turn. Of course, you may draw some actions dead from those other 3 cards, but it gives you a little bit more control than a top decker if you're using it for seeding your next turn, things like that. Another common use of secret passage is to bottom deck your junk. That means putting it right at the bottom of the deck. So the reason why you would do this is because cards at the bottom of your deck are more likely to do what we call missing the shuffle. That is that when you draw it, you trigger a shuffle either in the middle of your turn, or it's just as you're drawing your 5 starting cards. And that means that essentially for one of those shuffles, you don't actually get a chance to draw or play that card. And if it's a card that you don't want to draw, like an estate or something, you're happy for it to miss the shuffle. Now, sometimes if you have, say, a lot of secret passages, you can end up bottom decking a load of junk. And what this can mean is that you sort of end up with a possible dud hand towards the end of your shuffle. So if you imagined some sort of, again, like big money, treasure-based deck style thing, we're playing secret passages, and we hit 8, so we take an estate from our hand and we put it at the bottom of the deck. A couple of turns later, we might start to get towards the bottom of our deck, and we just got a load of estates that have all been shunted to the back, and so we just have a bad turn. However, in general, in Dominion, there's sort of this concept that having 1 good turn and 1 dud turn is sometimes going to be a lot better than 2 middling turns where you didn't really get to do what you wanted. If you see someone doing this, you might, for example, spot your opponent is trying to do this. Your opponent might be playing secret passages, and while you don't know what card they are moving in their deck, you might see that they are bottom decking a bunch of cards. And if you spot that, pay attention, because you may have a case where your opponent ends up causing this dud turn for themselves, and it could be really important in Dominion to know if your opponent has a dud, because it allows you to do things like avoid the penultimate province rule, where you can't buy the second to last province because your opponent will respond by buying the last one and winning. Well, if you know they can't get that province on their next turn because their hand was bad, or at least they have a very high chance that they can't, it might be a good idea for you to just go for both provinces across 2 turns. So just, keep in mind with that, you want to watch out for it for yourself, but you should also bear in mind that your opponents can be doing it too, and sometimes you might be able to predict. In general, you should be paying attention to what your opponent is doing, so this is just sort of an extension of that general concept, but a specific case that secret passage sometimes allows. Now, secret passage also has various combos. It's quite unique in that its effect allows you to set up things that many other cards do not. So I've just given some examples here. So I've included Vassal. It combos with Vassal in the same way that any other top decker does. So anything where we've talked about top decking cards and benefits with that. So for example, the Artisan video, same things apply with Secret Passage. I'm not going to go through that just because we've covered this before. But you also have cards like Patrol, which is in Intrigue. That draws 3 cards, then it reveals the top 4 and puts any victory or curses into your hand. So what you can do is you can use Secret Passage to put a state or a curse in positions like 4, 5, 6 or 7, and then play a Patrol, and it will draw that estate. And what that's sort of doing is maximising the draw that you get out of Patrol. Another similar case is Sentry from the base game here. You can't use top deckers to trash very easily with Sentry because it draws first and then it looks for 2 cards to trash. But what you can do with Secret Passage is you can put a curse 2 cards into your deck and then play a Sentry, and it will find that curse that you've put there, and then you get a chance to trash it. So this is obviously not a very exhaustive list. I mean, even from Intrigue, there are cards like Wishing Well that I haven't mentioned here, but I just want to give you this general idea because a lot of the cards that draw and then look at your top deck, they all might have certain combos with Secret Passage, and it would just be exhaustive and a bit tedious if I listed them all here. So I'm just going to give you those small examples and just think about the general concept and see if you can apply it to other cards. There's just a couple more things with Secret Passage. So Secret Passage, you might think of it as cycling, and it sort of doesn't cycle very well compared to cards like, say, Warehouse, and that is because you are putting the cards back on top of your deck. So it doesn't really speed up the way that you get through a shuffle, but it does add a little bit of reliability instead. It can also do things where sometimes with things like top deckers, you might want to do something like, say, end your turn by top decking a moat so that you have it in your starting hand next turn. And what you could do with Secret Passage is if you draw your Secret Passage early on through your draw, and you were hoping to maybe draw it late so you can top deck the moat, you could instead use Secret Passage and try and top deck that moat early, so to speak, by maybe putting the moat at the bottom of your deck, and then you get to carry on. So you got the benefits of the 2 draw from the Secret Passage, and then you can carry on drawing, and then you can try specifically to not draw that moat at the end, and then you've got the same sort of top decking benefit, but you got the filtering bonus and the drawing at the start of your turn instead of having to wait to the end of your turn to play the Secret Passage. So like top deck the moat. So it's a little bit more flexible than other sorts of filtering or sorts of top decking in that regard. Of course, that can also backfire in that you don't get through your deck, and then the moat might not actually be in your next hand and you have to draw it again halfway through your turn. But sometimes you just get the ability to do that. Now, Secret Passage is only reordering 1 card for every copy that you have, so each individual Secret Passage is not necessarily having a very big impact. In addition to that, while there are these cool combos that you can do, the problem is that Secret Passage costs 4, and that's, while it's not a super high price point, it is a price point that makes it hard to buy stuff opportunistically. It's very rare that you have 4 spare where you can't spend that on something more impactful. So it can be quite difficult to amass a number of Secret Passages without having a gainer like Workshop or Ironworks. And also, this means that it's costing you quite a lot if you want to use it for a combo. You're having to use an entire 4 cost gain or buy just for it. So a lot of the time, Secret Passage can struggle against other 4 cost cards in terms of opportunity cost. It is quite expensive for what it does. So Secret Passage does not necessarily get bought a lot for that reason. What it's doing for you in its default state for just 1 card is not necessarily all that exciting. So that's it for Secret Passage. Now what we are going to do is we are going to go over to the online client and we are going to generate some kingdoms with Secret Passage, and we will assess what impact it has on these boards. So what do we have here? Well, we have Chapel for trashing, and we've also got Replace later on. Are there any particular secret passage combos? There is with Vassal, but we also have Courtyard and Replace for top decking as well. What's the aim here? So drawing is Shantytown Courtyard, which is really poor for draw. The draw's very bad here. Replace, does it want to get harems? It can't really. You could replace your estate into harems and curse your opponent while gaining like a silver, but when would I do that? Only if I'm doing some sort of big money sort of thing, but it doesn't feel as good compared to others. I think the fact that that is possible means that you probably want to chapel down, and I think I would want to play bandits and then get a replace and try to turn some golds into provinces, but I don't like having to use short Shantytown and Courtyard, my apologies, to get to that. And one thing I could actually do is use Secret Passage to hopefully get other action cards out of my hand and then draw with Shantytown. So I could have Shantytown Courtyard Secret Passage and try and get the draw from Shantytown that way, and that's a lot better. But with no buys or gainers, I think it's just quite a lot of purchases to make that work, as cute as it is. So a part of me thinks that Courtyard Big Money might actually be the best thing to do here. Courtyard Big Money is very good as a big money enabler, and I don't see the other things being quite as nice. Maybe I go Courtyard Big Money and I eventually buy a bandit. No, I don't like that. I'm not actually that worried about the attack. The fact that there are harems is also okay as well for big money. I guess it helps it a little bit more. So I think Courtyard, harem, big money is actually the trick here. And that means Secret Passage is not great. I guess I would rather have Courtyards. I don't need the bonus I get from Secret Passage because Courtyards top decking is going to be doing just as well. So I think Secret Passage is ignored on that board. But there is a potential engine, if it wasn't so expensive, to buy them. What do we have here? So we have Trashing with Masquerade, Moneylender, and Replace, and mine, I guess, but not really. We have Artisan. I don't think Artisan works very well with Duchy Duke. Perhaps it does. Maybe Duchy Duke is very nice. We don't have a village. No, that's not true. Sorry, we have Shantytown. But the only draw, no, it's Smithy. We don't have to rely on Masquerade. So we can trash pretty quick with Masquerade. We can use Shantytown Smithy as not very good draw. But what are we going to do when we do that? We have Pawn for a buy, but it seems like it's going to be real hard to actually draw our deck. I don't see any particular combos with Secret Passage. And I wonder if Duchy Duke struggles against Masquerade because it keeps losing. It runs the risk of losing some victory cards from it. I don't think... I mean, it has a lot of coppers to get through. I don't like Artisan Duchy Duke as an enabler. That feels real bad. I would like to get thin with Masquerade. I would like to go for Shantytown Smithy. I would like an Artisan to help pick these up. And I could get some Secret Passages because I might be able to pick them up with Artisan. But it's not that exciting. Once I've done all of that, what am I actually doing? And Replace is... It's not really usable on much, unfortunately. Now, I could Masquerade the coppers and use Replace on the estates to turn them into Shantytowns and Smithies, but... Artisan is also able to just gain them directly, and I could trash the Estates of Masquerade early on. Secret Passage could be good here if I go for the engine. I'm wondering if, because the engine is not fast enough, actually, there's no easy way to pull off an engine. It seems slow and not very good. The Artisan Duchy Duke actually just might be better. And in that case, I'm not sure I ever get a Secret Passage. I think I would just rather have silvers. So I think I ignore Secret Passage here, and I build up to get an Artisan or two, and then I just go full on Duchy Duke with Artisan. Yeah, I think that's all I'm doing. So I think Secret Passage is ignored here as well. There's nothing particularly special going on with it. Now here I can see straight away that we have a workshop, which I like the look of. So we have no village. We do have sentry and steward, and remodel as trashing, and trading post as well. Gosh, we have a lot. How much do we want to trash? I think we can open steward and mill, and we would do that to try and get a sentry to help trash. But what's the value of trashing? So let's say we trash a lot, then what? You see, I don't like just doing a merchant cantrip thing. That feels bad. Mill is all right in money, I suppose. Like, there's no engine here is the problem. I think trading post is okay if I can get there, but I'm not sure. A part of me just wants steward, but I wonder if I am better off opening. Maybe it's just courtyard big money, thinking about it. I think I just do courtyard big money here because there is no real engine. Remodel can't get the components it needs to do some fun remodeling stuff. I think I like courtyard a big money, and that means that I won't bother with secret passage. So the engine, again, is not good. There is no engine, there is no village. And I think secret passage just, it's not doing anything for you here. No sort of strategy really cares that much. You could trash well with sentry, but you've already got steward to trash stuff from your hand, so you don't care about that. So I don't think trading post big money with secret passage support is very good. I think it's just courtyard. So I think this is another courtyard big money game, and so therefore I will ignore secret passage. So not been very good for secret passage so far. Maybe add some mills to that. What have we got here? So we've got ironworks, which is actually pretty good for getting secret passage. So again, our only village is Shantytown. We've had so many Shantytown villages in this. It's quite funny. We have moneylender and replace for trashing, so we can get thin. We can do Shantytown Smithy, but I think I would prefer Shantytown Minion as a way to draw. Now we have ironworks, so we can pick up a bunch of secret passages, and they're going to be useful to try and get to minions. So minions are very unreliable sometimes in terms of using it as draw, because it's like a draw to X. How much do we even need the village effect from Shantytown? What terminals are we playing? We would like to play a replace. We would like to play a moneylender. We might only even have one Shantytown. I think we can get a lot of secret passages with ironworks. But really what we want are markets and minions. Is that good enough? Well, we don't really have much payload here, seems to be the problem. That's our main issue that we've got. And I really don't like having to use money for minion, but I think we have to minion attack. I think you can't do much else if you're getting hit all the time by minions. I don't think courtyard big money is going to work. So I do like trashing down. You may be able to keep using your money lender to trash coppers if you get some markets. Seems a bit risky, but that is a thing you could do and set that up with secret passage. But then you've got to get a bunch of shanty towns and I don't know, a weird one this. I'm not quite sure how we go about this. I can see a good use for secret passage. It's easy to get. There are no particular combos, but there are strategies that like you to rearrange your cards a bit. So I think secret passage works here, but I'm really unsure as to the... I think you just have to go for a minion stack. I think that's it. I think you're just getting as many minions as you can. You are going to pick these up. Once you've picked up secret passage, what does ironworks even want? I guess it will get shanty towns happily. It could even add some smithies, honestly. Or courtyards might be slightly better, perhaps, than smithy. Because just you've got the minion discards, you don't care about having a huge hand. I think that's it, yep. So I think it's minion stack, and I like secret passage for that, especially as we've got ironworks to pick them up very easily. We can always replace the ironworks later, actually, if we are not using secret passage. So here comes the last one. What's going on here? So we have a way to set up a vassal with secret passage. There is no village, is there? There is no village at all. For that reason, I think this is just Witch Big Money, because there is no village, and that's all you want to do. So it's Witch Big Money. I don't care for Secret Passage in that case. I mean, maybe it's fine. I don't think it is. I think you would rather have a silver. So I think if I had a spare 4, I would rather pick up a Harbinger than a Secret Passage, honestly, just because I'm more likely to have stuff in my discard. Is that what I would do? It would let me play a card multiple times per shuffle, which is not what's happening with Secret Passage. So yeah, so I think it's Witch Money, and if I have a spare 4, I get like a Harbinger, but you probably just want silvers over either of those, actually. So sad board, but that's it. So that was Secret Passage. It sort of struggled on those random kingdoms just because there weren't really engines on a lot of them. Secret Passage you can set up stuff, but it's not a super great card a lot of the time. Sometimes there are good combos, but you're really looking for like gainers, like workshops for Secret Passage, or you only get like 1 or 2 to set up certain combos at certain times. So yeah, Secret Passage, that was it. Not the most exciting card around, I have to say. Although it's cool, it does a unique thing. I like it, but, how powerful is it really? It's only all right. Anyway, I hope that was useful for you. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.